Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nathan and Deer's Guide to Everything, and welcome back to the Legend Forge, where we take characters from pop culture, video games, movies, and we mold them into something D&D related. We've got a really big episode for you today, a recent addiction of mine playing God of War Ragnarok, so you can guess who it is. We're going to be doing Kratos today. But first, I have a quick life update. The reason I haven't been uploading is because I left my old job, got a new one, moved to London. It's been kind of a lot. Life's got in the way, but we're back, hopefully. And I didn't check the channel for ages because I was just sad that I couldn't upload. And then when I came back, I saw that we were over 1,000 subscribers. So thank you. It's incredible considering I haven't uploaded for however long it's been. The support has been fantastic. I will try to get to all the comments eventually, but first, let's get a new video out. So as I said, we've got Kratos today, and it's my gift to you for the holiday season. Without further ado, let's jump into this. So here we are, welcome back to D&D Beyond. Let's jump into the My Characters section. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom. There haven't been too many new additions to the roster here of all my characters, so easy enough to find. We have the usual bits turned on, homebrew for the most part, optional class features, customize your origin. Basically, we want to customize this as much as we can. For the race, I've gone with Goliath. The other two options were human or Asimar. Asimar for the divine blood, I thought perhaps, but actually we've achieved that with our class, which obviously we'll get into in a second. I think Goliath, because they represent Kratos the best. They have that pale skin with the tattoos. It just makes sense. The only difference is Kratos can grow a beard, very Grog-esque from Critical Role, for those of you who watch it. The feature we care about here is Little Giant. We have proficiency in athletics. We count as one size larger, and we can lift more, push more, drag more, whatever it might be. We have that demigod strength. We also have Mountain Born. Resistance to cold damage just innately, which is fantastic because obviously in the recent games, Kratos has moved to the Norse pantheon. He lives literally in a snowy landscape, or I guess when Fimbulwinter comes in, that's what it looks like anyway. I think resistance to cold damage just makes sense. You never hear Kratos complaining that he's a bit chilly, so there we are. We also have Stone's Endurance. When we take damage, we can use our reaction to roll a d12 and just negate some of that damage. Kratos is basically unkillable, as far as we can tell, so that makes sense too. Moving swiftly on, we're going to jump into class, and we actually start with 4 levels of fighter. Now this is controversial, I think, but hear me out. He started as a Spartan, and he would have trained just as a soldier at the start, rather than this demigod barbarian that we know him as. So I think fighter makes sense. So we've gone for animal handling and acrobatics, purely because I didn't have that many options, as you can see here. Animal handling makes sense. I think he's good with the wolves in the new games. Acrobatics, because I mean he is in the earlier games definitely jumping around all over the place with the Blades of Chaos, so it makes sense for his earlier appearances, let's say. For a fighting style, we went with thrown weapon fighting because it would have been trained in a spear first of all, which you needed to be able to throw, of course. Second wind just means we're a bit more resistant. Similar to the Goliath ability that we just saw, it just means you can bonus action get a little bit of healing whenever you need it. A second level fighter, we get action surge, which just means we can attack more, which is always good for a barbarian. Martial archetype, we've gone for champion. The simplest one, he is literally a champion of the gods. He's gifted, the Blades of Chaos to do their bidding, a champion of the Olympians. Again, it makes sense. He becomes a general in the Spartan army. Improved critical, roll on a 19 or 20, we get a crit, which is just huge for the brutal critical feature, which comes in with the barbarian levels. We'll get there in a second as well. For our 4th level ability score improvement, we actually went with a feat. We went with Sentinel. I think this just, again, makes sense. Kratos, for the most part, likes to fight up close and personal, and this will keep creatures up close and personal with you. Sentinel, essentially, when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, that creature's speed becomes 0, so they can't run away from you even if they want to. Creatures still provoke opportunity if they take the disengage, and when a creature within 5 feet of you makes an attack against a target other than you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature, so you're protecting those that are nearby. So in his past that would have been other soldiers, and these days it is Atreus and Freya in the newer game as well. A quick pause just here, there will be spoilers for God of War and God of War Ragnarok, as well as all the games in the past if you haven't played those, so make sure you don't want it to be spoiled before you watch this video. I'll try and keep the big story spoilers out, but some of it can't be helped. Moving into Barbarian, we don't get anything exciting proficiency-wise because we started with Fighter, but we do get a Rage at first level as a bonus action. That means we have advantage on all strength everything, and we gain bonus damage to any strength attack that we make while we're raging as well. We also have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And this just generally works with Kratos. When he's just normally fighting, he seems to be in a bit of a rage, but then he actually has a rage mode in the games as well, which I'm sure you know if you're watching this video. So it works in both senses. I don't know why you wouldn't use this as soon as you start a fight though, in D&D terms. First level Barbarians also get unarmored defense. He basically doesn't wear armor, never has. Basically he's just been shirtless for the entire series. In the new ones, you can put some armor on him, but I feel like he still always looks better with just that kind of leather pauldron that goes across. So our armor class is 10 plus dex plus our con modifier, and our con will be massive because he can take a beating. Second level, we get reckless attack, which means we can choose to attack with advantage, but then attacks against us have advantage. I feel like Kratos is definitely quite reckless. He doesn't mind just taking the hits. We have danger sense, which is advantage on dex saves against things we can see, such as traps and spells. This isn't too relevant to Kratos, but we get it. Again, nothing transfers perfectly, but it's useful to have. He definitely is aware of his surroundings, so that's always good to have. Primal knowledge, an optional feature. I've gone for intimidation as a proficiency, which I think he definitely does have as well. For our primal path, this is where the angelic divine kind of essence comes into the character. Path of the Zealot. At third level here, we get divine fury. So essentially, the first creature we hit on a turn, we can choose to deal extra damage, either necrotic or radiant with our divine fury. We've gone for radiant because I think Kratos does actually fall on the side of good. He's just always out for vengeance, right? But he's killing usually more evil creatures than himself. Third level, Warrior of the Gods. That is literally what he is. Our soul is marked for endless battle. If a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life but not in death, the caster does not need material components to cast the spell on you. In the latest games, you can be revived with a simple kind of item push into the chest. So I guess you do need material components, but it just means you're easier to bring back should you go down. At fourth level Barbarian, we get another ability score improvement. This time we're not going for a feat, we're going to a double dip into strength. Fifth level, extra attack. We love to see it. Another fifth level feature, we get fast movement. Our speed increases by 10 feet while we're not wearing heavy armor, and we're really going to be wearing none, basically. But you can just flavor it as that one leather strap that he essentially wears in the new games. At sixth level, we have fanatical focus. If we fail a saving throw while we're raging, we can re-roll it, and we must use that new roll. We can only use this once per rage, and this comes from the Zealot subclass that we took. At seventh level, we've gone for another optional feature from Tasha's, I believe. As part of a bonus action we take to enter our rage, we can move up to half our speed. This just closes the distance. Kratos is fast. It was in the old games, and in the new ones, when you press that attack button, he seems to just glide towards enemies like he's stuck to them. I guess that's quite video gamey, but instinctive pounce is a good way to flavor it as that. At seventh level, we also have feral instinct. We have advantage on initiative rolls, and if we're surprised, we can act normally on our first turn of combat as long as we rage first. As get in places, Kratos definitely is feral, especially in the earlier games. These days he's got a bit more of a hold on things, but even still, when that rage takes over, he's a force to be reckoned with. At 8th level, we've gone for another ability score improvement, which is a double dip into Constitution. At 9th level, we get the best Barbarian feature, in my opinion, other than Rage, of course, is Brutal. Critical. Now, remember, we crit on a 19 or 20 because we are a champion fighter. So this can get monstrous. We roll one additional weapon damage die when we determine the extra damage for a critical hit. This quickly stacks up, and when you see the weapons we've got, going to be outputting some serious damage. At 10th level, another optional feature, we've gone for survival as our primal knowledge. I feel like this is kind of the perfect time to say this is where Kratos is dropped into the Norse world. However he gets there, he has to just be in tune to survive in that wilderness as opposed to the Greek pantheon, and he adapts really well, so survival fits there, I think. Zealous Presence, so another Path of the Zealot feature. We learn to channel divine power to inspire zealotry in others. As a bonus action, we can unleash a battle cry. You and up to 10 other creatures of your choice within 60 feet that you can hear gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. I didn't realize how powerful this was until I was watching Critical Role, and I saw Yasha in Critical Role Campaign 2 use this for an entire round. Basically, everyone has advantage on everything they want to do and to resist anything serious. It's crazy and really, really powerful, and I think Kratos can pull off a big battle cry for sure. Starting at 11th level, right, this is where our survivability gets a bit silly, to be honest with you. If we would drop to 0 hit points while we're raging, we don't die, we make a con save and then drop to 1 instead. The DC increases by 5 every time we do this. We're basically unkillable at this point because we have like a plus 11 to con saves or something, and if we battle cried, we have advantage. It all stacks on top of each other. It'd be very, very hard to kill it, and that is Relentless Rage. At 12th level, we've gone for another ability score improvement, which is to double into Constitution. At 13th level, our Brutal Critical becomes even more brutal. Two additional weapon damage dice when determining extra damage for a crit. And remember, 19 or 20 because of champion fighter. Our rage gets even more silly with survivability. Rage beyond death. Essentially, if we do drop to 0 hit points and we die, we start making death saves. But even if we fail all our death saves, nothing happens until our rage ends. Then we die. But that's only if we haven't been healed by then. So even after combat, there's that 6 seconds before your rage drops down. You can grab your healer, drink a potion, whatever it might be, and act like nothing happened. At 15th level, we have Persistent Rage. Our rage is so fierce that it only ends if you fall unconscious or choose to end it. So again, this Rage Beyond Death feature, we can just carry on forever, basically. It's ridiculous. And finally, at 16th level, we've gone for a double into Wisdom to round out Kratos. For our abilities, I did roll a set and rolled pretty well, but you could just use the standard set, focusing on strength and con as your primary statistics, and then dexterity and wisdom to bring up your armor class and your kind of mental score as well to represent Kratos later on in life, as we have done. Our ability score increases as standard. I went for a +2 to con, a +1 in strength, and we'll see what that totals in a second. For our description, we've gone for Far Traveler because he literally has traveled between realms. I think that grants him the Far Traveler status. I thought Soldier was a bit boring, which I guess probably would fit as well. So Far Traveler I think is a bit more exciting. Skill proficiencies, Insight and Perception again. Later on in these games compared to the initial trilogy, he definitely has a bit more wit about him, I think. Tool proficiencies, the Horn. Spoilers, in God of War Ragnarok you do a very powerful horn. Gjallarhorn to be precise. Right, let's jump into the character sheet and get to the good stuff. So here we are, the big reveal of the character sheet. As you can see, our physical statistics are absolutely crazy. We also have some good mental statistics as well. Survival +9, Perception +9, Insight +9. Pretty good. I mean, we have a 16 Wisdom. I feel like those bonuses are pretty damn good. But enough about the statistics. Let's jump into the items I've created. I did put a lot of effort into these, so hopefully you like them. Hopefully you can use them in your games. Feel free to. They'll all be published, and you can just search bracket NGTE bracket in the Homebrew collection on D&D Beyond, and you should find all my items. If you want to specifically search one, you know the names of them. Or if you're here, I assume you know the names of them. So we'll work our way up from what I consider to be the least exciting to the most exciting item. We'll start with the Guardian Shield, which when equipped gives us a +4 bonus to AC because it's a shield and it's a +2 shield. So really, really solid. The Guardian Shield is a retractable shield that is... The Guardian Shield is a retractable shield that is present in an ornate gauntlet. When used skillfully, it allows the wielder to block, parry, and strike their enemies. The shield was gifted to a Far Traveler from Sparta by a Jotun warrior named Laufey. Now again, if you've played the games, you'll know exactly who this comes from. Kratos' late partner. So I've already mentioned you get a +2 magically with this weapon, as well as what it already gives for being a shield. We can don or doff it at will because of how it's magically contained within the gauntlet on your arm. You also gain the following benefits, and a lot of these are drawn from the influence of the Battle Master fighter, because I think Kratos absolutely is that, but it kind of didn't fit into this build, so I built it into the shield instead. First up, we have Shield Strike. When another creature targets you for an attack, you can use a reaction to interrupt them. When you do so, roll a 1d6 and reduce the creature's attack roll by the number rolled. This kind of represents those 2 blue circle interruptible attacks that you can do in Ragnarok, specifically the newer game. So yeah, that's represented there. We have a parry. It does what it sounds like. You reduce some incoming damage, 1d8 plus your dex modifier, as a reaction when something attacks you. We have the boy feature, which is when you take the attack action on your turn, you can forego one of your attacks and use a bonus action to direct one of your companions to strike. So this would be him shouting for Atreus to shoot his bow in the game, right? When you do so, you choose a friendly creature. If it can hear you, rolls a d10. Creature can immediately use its reaction to make a weapon attack, adding the number you rolled to the attack's damage roll. So a buff on the damage, and yeah, you can call your friends into action. So this could be boy, or so this could be Atreus or Freya in the new game. Deflect missile, you can use a reaction to deflect a missile. Is what it sounds. It's a less powerful version of the monk feature of the same name. I wanted to give a way for the character to parry missiles, because you can do that in the game as well. So there it is, built into there. Next up, we have Mimir. Mimir is if you've heard of it, a professor orb in the D&D universe, buffed to a ridiculous level is what I've done. I'll read some of the flavor text, not all of it. Mimir's reanimated severed head. He has 2 small engraved horns and a long trinket emblazoned grey beard. His eyes glow with a bright yellow, and the crown on his head is covered in runic tattoos. Once the advisor rather than imprisoned by Odin, he was freed from his binds by a far traveller from another realm to aid in a quest of great importance. Mimir is lawful good, has intelligence of 20, a wisdom of 20, and a charisma of 16. He's also known as the smartest man alive and is an endless font of knowledge. And that will be his purpose for you on an adventure if you manage to find or acquire Mimir's severed head. He can speak Common, Giant, Dwarvish, Elvish, Primordial, and any other Norse language. He is a master of languages. He also has expertise on the following subjects, but always has more to say. Norse deities, Norse monsters, the 9 realms of Yggdrasil, or the World Tree, famous figures of the 9 realms, and dead languages. He can see basically everything you can see, but if he's hung on the waist, obviously it would be in the other direction, as in the games. He has 120 feet of dark vision, and when making an intelligence or a wisdom check to recall lore from its expertise, he has a +14 bonus to the roll, and anything else that he might know basically is a +9 to the roll. So he's got a really, really good chance of knowing any question you ask him. But I would also try and use him, if you're DMing this, use him as some comic relief. You're literally carrying around a severed head, and he's actually a lovely bloke in the game, and you can channel that as well. Right, now let's move on to the weapons, the bread and butter of what Kratos is all about. So the Blades of Chaos, very, very famous weapons. The only problem is in D&D it doesn't quite transfer, and it's hard to say. I've made them short swords, but if you do a short sword, it's a finesse weapon, which means you don't get a strength bonus, it's your dex instead. Easy way to fix this, if you want to use your strength modifier, is to just tap on it, press customize, and upgrade the hit bonus to +3 and upgrade the damage bonus to +3. And that way it's on the same level as your other weapons, which are strength scaled. Couldn't figure out a way to do this with the homebrew at the moment without changing it to like a flail, but then I didn't want to do that because it changes all the damage profile. Anyway, responsible for the fall of Olympus, forged in the underworld, bestowed upon a demigod, a boon from Ares, the god of war, from an ancient pantheon. The pair of blades are a symbol of servitude to the Olympians, emphasized by the chains that bind to the very flesh of their wielder, widely known and feared as a symbol of rage and bloodlust. You have a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with these magic weapons. You have a reach of 15 feet while using these as well. The first feature is Chaos Flame. This essentially allows you to do some spell casting, which is disguised runic attacks, because I didn't want to list every runic attack because these item descriptions would be more monstrous than they already are. So you can produce flame at will at like an 11th level caster level, which is 3d8. 3 times a day you can cast a fireball. You can literally throw a fireball with these blades in game, so it's not too far from the truth. And once a day you can cast Firestorm, which is very powerful, a bit of a stretch, but you can do something very similar and bring meteors raining down from the sky. I didn't want to do Meteor Swarm, a 9th level spell, thought that might be a bit much, so Firestorm it is. Our first main feature, we have Immolation. When you hit with an attack using these blades, they take an extra 2d6 fire damage. You also have resistance to cold damage. Thankfully, we're a Goliath that's built in anyway, not needed. We have Primordial Fire. When attacking with these blades, we ignore a creature's resistance to fire damage. So if they're just resistant, you just pummel through that. Immunity is a different thing though. Scorched Earth. You can make a melee weapon attack as a bonus action each of your turns with these blades. That's just to, because basically Kratos is just a cyclone when he's using these of attacks, so I think it makes sense that he can attack more with this. Hyperion Pull is the very famous pull attack that you can do with the blades in the game. Essentially, you pull a target creature if they're medium or smaller 15 feet towards you without a save. But if they're bigger than that, they make a strength saving throw or they're pulled to the ground and knocked prone. For our final feature of these, we have Rampage of the Furies. As an action, you swing the blades with a robust flurry of attacks. Choose up to 5 creatures you can see within 15 feet. Make a melee attack against each. They all take 3d10 slashing, 3d10 fire. Once you've used this feature, you can't use it again until you complete a short or long rest. And this, Rampage of the Furies, is my favorite runic attack in the game, so I thought I had to include it. These blades are, however, cursed. The first time a creature attunes to these blades, they must make a DC 17 con save. On a failed save, they take 10d6 fire damage, and an avatar of the Ghost of Sparta hunts you down. It has the statistics of a Balor, except it has a spear instead of a longsword. If it managed to obtain the blades from you and defeat you, it takes them and vanishes, but the only way you can get rid of this otherwise after defeating them to stop them coming after you is through a wish spell. Even if you succeed on the save, you still take 10d6 fire damage, so it is risky, and you also take that when you unattune from them as well. These are dangerous things to have, and you're also unwilling to part with them once you have them, and this is to represent the fight that Kratos had to, the internal fight he had to do to finally kind of free himself of these chains. Hope you enjoyed that one. Now let's move on to his signature weapon from the new games, the Leviathan Axe. Very similar in structure to the Blades of Chaos, a large axe inspired by the size of Jormungandr the World Serpent, specially forged by the Huldra brothers, Brock and Sindri, to be a match for Mjolnir, the mighty hammer of Thor. This is a +3 weapon. It has the Throne property, so a short range of 20, long range of 60. Immediately after you make an attack with this, you can will the axe to fly back to your hand. If you choose not to, it then costs a bonus action on subsequent moments or turns. Frozen Flame is our first feature, and this is the spell casting ability for it. We can do Ray of Frost at will at 3d8 level, very similar to on the Blades of Chaos, as I mentioned. And once a day each, we can cast Ice Storm and Cone of Cold. Ice Storm is to represent the Breath of Tharma runic attack, and Cone of Cold, I forget the exact runic attack or what it's called, but essentially slams the axe to the ground and pushes it forwards and literally unleashes like a cone of frost. It's perfect. Next feature is Permafrost. When we hit with an attack, it deals an extra 1d8 cold damage as standard, or 1d10 when in both hands. That is a running theme with the Leviathan Axe. One hand is less damage, 2 hands is more damage. I won't mention that again. In addition, we have resistance to fire damage while we hold this. We can do a Frost Awaken as a bonus action. We can awaken the elemental cold. It deals an extra chunk of damage, whether one-handed or two-handed. The empowering effect of Frost Awaken lasts till you hit a creature or until the end of your next turn, whichever is sooner. But while it's active, you have the opportunity to make a freezing throw. So if you're holding it in both hands, you can chuck it. A creature hit by this must make a DC 17 con save. They take an additional 2d8 if they get hit by this and they fail it. Their movement speed is halved. They can't use reactions, and they have to pick between an action or a bonus action. They cannot do both. On a successful save, none of these effects. If they are immune to cold or resistant to cold, none of these effects, unfortunately. Additionally, if a creature fails this save by 5 or more and they're medium or smaller, they are encased in ice, which essentially makes them vulnerable to fire, resistant to cold, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. Their speed is reduced to 0 and they're incapacitated. So basically, they're frozen in a block of ice, as often happens in the game if you hit a weaker enemy with the axe. For the axe, I did represent my 2 favorite runic attacks with it, which is Winter's Bite and Hell's Touch. So Winter's Bite is essentially a massive one big movement uppercut. It gives you a 20 feet kind of burst of speed on your turn. You make a melee attack. If it hits, they take 8d8 cold damage instead of all your normal damage. Additionally, they make a DC 17 dex save, or they are stunned until the end of your next turn. And this is a feature that can be used once per short or long rest. Final feature is Hell's Touch. This is a kind of small area of effect stun ability, one of my favorites from the game as well. Always use it to interrupt attacks and things. As an action, we can raise the axe, unleash a quick burst of energy to interrupt and knock back all nearby enemies. Each creature within 20 feet makes a con save. They take 2d10 cold damage on a failure and are pushed 10 feet away. But additionally, they are all stunned, so this gives you the opportunity to stun a whole swath of enemies. We've got a nice little quote there and some lovely artwork from the game there about the axe. Moving on to the final weapon, the new weapon. I was hoping for a sword in this game. I was actually waiting for a new weapon. I thought they really needed to do it in the new game, and they did. Spoilers, the Draupnir Spear. Really excited about this one. Forged in Svartalfheim by the Lady of the Forge using Odin's ungifted, endlessly duplicating ring, Draupnir. This is a +3 spear, normal range of 20, long range of 60. While you're attuned, you don't suffer any disadvantage for throwing up to the full 60. As a bonus action, you can summon or dismiss the Draupnir Spear, which all comes out of a ring, magically appears in your hand, and it has this embed feature. So immediately after you embed a spear in a creature or object, a duplicate spear appears in your hand. So if you chuck it, another one just appears ready for the next attack. First feature is Gale Force. As with the other items, basically allows you spell casting. It's a DC 18 on the saves. At will, you can cast Gust of Wind 3 times a day. You can do a Guiding Bolt at 3rd level. The spear does have like a radiant energy about it and like shimmers when you hit something with it. So I think Guiding Bolt makes sense there. Twice a day, we can cast Wind Wall and Thunder Wave. There weren't any other really high level kind of wind themed spells to take advantage of here. So I thought these do make sense. Maelstrom is standard essential buff to this spear. It deals an extra 1d8 force damage on any hits. We also have resistance to force damage, which is a very, very rare resistance. Draupnir's Call is something that triggers every turn. When we hit with a ranged attack while using the spear, the thrown spear embeds itself into the target automatically and cannot be removed by any means. At the end of each of our turns, any embedded spears detonate into wind explosions, each dealing 1d4 force damage. You can have a maximum number of spears embedded at any time equal to your proficiency bonus. So depending on when you get this, you'll have anywhere from 3 to 6 spears that can be embedded at once at any level. This is a hyper powerful item. I wanted to put this like automatically because I feel like it'd be a bit harsh to make an action just to slam the spear down and explode the embedded spears. So I thought just a little bit of damage at the end of every turn makes it a little more usable. Just a couple more to go. We have Elemental Siphon. When we hit with an attack using the spear, if the target has an elemental or magical essence, we can use a bonus action through that attack to siphon that element. If you do, any force damage you would deal is replaced by the siphon damage type instead, which would be determined by the DM. This stops any arguing about what you think a creature is made of, and that would last until the end of your next turn. For example, you hit a fire elemental, you can siphon fire energy into your spear, and all this force damage would turn into fire instead. We have Phalanx, which is kind of a classic Spartan shield wall, I guess. When you take damage from a creature within 5 feet, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack with the spear against that creature. On a hit, the spear deals damage as normal, pushes the creature 5 feet away, and you get an embed from that as well. So bonus embed if you don't manage to get all 6 attacks off. Finally, we have the Siege feature, which is all force damage from thrown spears and Draupnir's Call. Deal double damage to objects and structures, which that is its kind of main use in the game for unlocking new areas. It just destroys rock, structures, walls, whatever it might be. One of my favorite quotes from the game, one of the best moments in the game, I think, a quote from Brock, who blesses the Draupnir Spear. May this weapon strike true, may it be wielded with wisdom, may it be put down when the job is done. I think it's a great quote from the new game, which, by the way, is 10 out of 10. Would recommend playing it. Very much enjoyed it. So I think that brings this to a close. I just have one more thing to show you, one more option you could use to create Kratos in D&D Beyond. So quickly moving back to my character, as you can see, I've got 2 of them here, and this is just a level 20 barbarian. And the reason this is fantastic is because of the capstone ability, Primal Champion, which definitely does elevate you to godlike levels of strength and constitution. your strength and constitution increase by 4. Your maximum for those scores is now 24. An easy way to achieve this without taking full barbarian, if you really want to kind of stick to my build, I guess, with the fighter earlier on and the good crit chance, you can just get a belt of giant strength. I think if you're playing a level 18, 19 character, you shouldn't have a problem attaining something like that. Anyway, additionally, for being this level as a barbarian all the way to 20, we get another brutal critical. Die, and basically we can't fail on strength checks, Indomitable Might. But that's it. That's my version of Kratos, built specifically in D&D Beyond with homebrew items to use to your heart's content, whether you're playing Kratos or anything else. Thank you so much for watching. And again, we crossed the 1,000 sub mark, which is something I really wanted to happen, and I'm sorry that I missed it, essentially. But I'll hope to get a follow-up video out with this one very, very soon. So Merry Christmas if this comes out on the day or before, and I hope you had a good Christmas if not, and have a great new year. I'll see you at some point very soon.